Hi all, I'd like to show you a very interesting encounter continuing to look at Kasparov when he was a youngster, this time again when he was 14. Played in 1977 in the USSR. His opponent, Sergey Dolmatov. Now Dolmatov is one of the more colourful opponents Kasparov played in his youth. He was awarded the IM title in 1978, that's just a year after this game, and the GM title in 1982. In fact, in the year after this game he was heading to become the World Junior Chess Champion in 1978, and this is for players under 20 years old, so it's actually quite a major achievement. Kasparov had to wait until 1980 to win the World Junior Championship. So let's have a look. E4 from Sergey. Kasparov plays C6. Now after D3 we see this timid move that Kasparov reacts with E5, gaining a bit of dark square grip on D4. And now after G3, Kasparov plays G6, and White decides to pounce on this with a move which seems to be a tempo losing move, but it's emphasizing dark square control and aggression. And let's put on a kibitzer here. So D4 is actually, it seems to be from an engine point of view, D4 is actually a strong move in this position, waiting for this G6 to play D4. Believe it or not, it's really quite light from an engine perspective. If the normal bishop G2, then bishop G7 secures more black control of D4. So this is a very important strategic square. Early battle nuances, about control of the square is vital to consider. So D4 here, and if E takes D4, then the queen's being developed with an advantage. It's quite an aggressive queen here. If, for example, knight F6, then E5, and this is a very pleasant position for White. There's quite a significant advantage there. If Black is forced to play queen F6, then again bishop E3, and White's still got a tangible advantage. This D file could be useful later. There's a backward pawn here on D7. So this is a very, very nice move, D4. Kasparov reacts with actually a very interesting move, sort of D6, which I think is actually playable, but I think still White could be a little bit better in this continuation. Even just taking queens off here, White's a little bit better. But Kasparov plays a very interesting move in response. Instead, he plays knight F6. And he's offering, of course, a temporary pawn sacrifice. If we have a look at this, if D takes, then check, knight D2, queen takes E5. Black's doing okay here, but White does have a significant advantage out of the opening, if this was the case. Instead, actually, White reacts to this knight F6 with the move knight C3. And now Kasparov continues with queen A5. Threatening knight takes E4 now, so he's pinning that knight. Threatening knight takes E4. White protects E4 with bishop G2, and now we see D6. And it's okay for Black now. It's most of the issues, the major issues for getting a significant disadvantage have disappeared right now. Knight G E7, bishop G7. White takes on E5, D takes, and now queen D6 looks quite invasive. What is White actually threatening? Well, potentially bishop D2 and then discovery on the queen is dangerous. It is stopping Black from castling. If bishop F8, just take this knight on F6. So how does actually Black castle here? Well, Kasparov plays knight A6 for the moment. This does support now, if needed, perhaps queen C7 to evict the queen. But also just getting the rook into D8 will evict the queen. Just bishop E6 from rook D8. So it's a bit of a delay incurred though on Black castling here. White castles, bishop E6. So now rook D8 is potentially on the cards, but also the bishop is defending now indirectly F6. So bishop F8 as well to evict the queen is on the cards, because the queen's protecting E5. That's never a problem. So okay, either rook D8 or bishop F8. And actually in this position there's also the possibility of knight B4 hitting C2. That's a little bit vulnerable here, C2 pawn. We see rook D1 now. And in fact, in this position, Kasparov does elect to hit that c2 pawn to attack it, rather than anything else. Knight b4 appears to be, at least from an engine point of view, one of the strongest moves in the position. It's causing a problem here. How is this pawn defended? If the queen goes back, black's actually getting a significant edge here after simply castling. What is white actually doing? He can't even kick this knight. That can be ignored. White's going up on the back foot here if he's not careful. Something tactical like knight d5. And black's doing very, very well here. Good central control. With that d5, the pieces are liberated in this position. So knight b4 is causing a problem with c2. Sergey plays bishop e3. So a tactical idea to get onto c5 for queen e7 to be a problem. It's also interrupting black's control of e5. So the bishop f8 resource, you'd think that queen takes e5 would be hitting h8. That's the mechanics of bishop e3 here. Rather complex. Knight takes c2 though is played in this position. Now let's have a look here at the immediate bishop c5. Kasparov, in this variation, this is just a variation, could defend against the mate threat with bishop f8. Queen takes e5. And here, bishop takes c5 isn't that good because queen takes f6. And this is a little bit dangerous for black. After casting rook ac1, white's a tiny bit, well, absolutely okay for white. But if we go back here, this still might be okay for black with knight g4, which is a bit of a similar idea to the game, to offer this rook as an exchange sacrifice. But an improvement for white here is trying to be played, and it is definitely an improvement, to play b4. This would gain an important tempo on queen takes b4. Well, that would be terrible for black. Bishop c5 here is winning actually, because we're just picking up the piece. Bishop f8 to stop the mate on e7, but we just take here and we just material up in this position. So b4 is an important start to this idea to make bishop c5 more effective. So Kasparov has to react accurately. He plays, I think, one of the best moves, knight takes b4. So we see this bishop c5 idea now. So it's threatening mate on e7. And how is e7 actually defended? If it's also attacking b4, so if queen d8, bishop takes b4. Okay, so bishop f8 is virtually forced, and it's going into this virtual exchange sack now. After queen takes e5, Kasparov doesn't want to take, well, he can actually take on c5 as well for this exchange sack and still be okay, but he plays an even more powerful move first. He doesn't want to lose his knight. But just to show this, bishop takes c5 is actually possible. On queen takes f6, black could castle. Black still would be okay here. But Kasparov played an even stronger continuation, much stronger than this. Actually, that didn't lose the exchange, but he actually volunteers the exchange with knight g4. He's putting pressure on his f2. So he's offering his rook. The queen's a bit out of the way, taking on h8. And now the bishop's now pinned, so queen takes c5. And there's pressure on f2, which white has to parry. So white tries to defend f2 with rook f1. So the exchange down. What has Kasparov achieved for this exchange sacrifice? Well, the queen's well out of play here. And this f2, in fact, the knights can coordinate rather menacingly on f2. But first Kasparov castles queenside. This queen is a real problem here. It can't really come out of this trap here. In this position, in fact, white is running out of decent moves. He has to play extremely accurately. Engines suggest in this position that white's only chance for survival might actually be a move like bishop h3, believe it or not. The idea is when that f2 is victimized with knight d3, for instance, then white could snap off at least one of these horrible knights and try and survive this position. And black here is only apparently slightly better. But what a thing to voluntarily want to do, to give up the light square defender, but it's helping the dark square to soak up the dark square pressure there. So bishop h3 might actually be one of the only moves in this position if white wanted to survive. In fact, in the game he played queen takes h7. This is the first major blunder. Kasparov plays again the absolutely strongest move, not knight takes f2, which is reasonably strong, but building up the pressure first with knight d3. So this is much more powerful to have the option of taking with this knight on f2. Knight d takes f2 is on the card. So white now is forced to do something about f2. There's also a threat potentially of knight f6 as well, which could be useful for black as well to consider. So here it's a very, very tricky situation. White plays a passive retreat, and it's got a weakness of the last move here, in that this diagonal is now exposing the rook, and Kasparov taps into that weakness of the last move with queen e5. He's not only hitting the rook, he's also potentially supporting h8 now for operations. And in fact, after white's rook moves, bishop c5, and what an amazing coordination of pressure on f2 here from the bishop and the two knights. The queen now is supporting the rook to win the queen. White's actually busted here. It's gone. The position has actually gone here. If queen h4, rook h8, where's the queen going? The queen cannot flee, it seems, in this position. White tries h3, and before even taking the queen with rook h8, trying to win the queen, even more accurate again perhaps. Actually, it's not much in it. Taking on f2 or rook h8 is not much in it. Kasparov did choose to take on f2 first. The queen's actually not going anywhere here in any case. On queen h4 we've always got again, well, we've got discovered checks, we've got all sorts of things here, but we've always got in this position rook h8 anyway. This is absolutely crushing. So in the game continuation, Kasparov, after knight takes f2, knight takes f2 was played by white, and we see rook h8. And here, Sergey Dolmatov, who was heading just the very next year to be an international master at the same time as world junior chess champion. I think the title might have been given to him of IM the next year when he won the world championship for juniors under 20. But in this game, he was destroyed by Kasparov. A fantastic early game by Garry Kasparov. I think you'll agree. Comments or questions on YouTube? Thanks very much.